You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Thanks so much for joining me here today on our Total Wellness Tuesday show, where we are going to be going over 7 foods and lifestyle factors that damage your brain. And here's why. Too much that I see in my practice, and too often in life, we begin to think that Alzheimer's and dementia and even nervous system-based issues as well that affect the brain and the body, like Parkinson's or even MS, have nothing to do with how we're living our life and everything to do with genetics. But as I've explained before, genetics is such a minute part of the overall perspective of how we stay well or how we get sick that it almost shouldn't even be part of the discussion. And I've shared with you before that rheumatoid arthritis riddles everyone, my grandparents, my parents, everyone. And I had the same joint pain when I was just 17 years old. Now, I said it, I was about 20 years ahead of schedule when everyone else used to get it. But the thing is, now more than 20 years later, I don't have it. I should have it, right? It's in my genes. It's in my genetics. Same with a lot of diabetes in my family. It's in my genetics. I had it, 17 years old, don't have it today. How is it possible? Well, it's possible when you begin to understand that your genetics do matter. You should know about them, but they're not your destiny. That's the bottom line. And I know you've heard that before. Your genetics are not your destiny, but we need to believe that. Because I talk with so many people over and over, and they say, and I ask them, well, why do you think you have low thyroid? They say, well, it's genetic. Everyone in my family have it. Okay. Why do you think you have high cholesterol? Well, it's genetic. Everyone in my family has high cholesterol. All right. Now, if we go back, when you were 12 years old, did you have high cholesterol? And they say, no, I don't think that I did. And I said, well, but you had the same genes. So if you have the same genes, why didn't you have high cholesterol at 12? Why didn't you have low thyroid at 12? And they said, I don't know, but everyone in my family gets it later in life. I understand. Okay, but why do those genes turn on? Why were they allowed to express themselves as unhealthy 10, 20, 30 years later? You have to ask yourself that question because you can go back to the previous you. It was a version of you. That version, though, hadn't filled up its rain barrel. It hadn't been overloaded with poor food choices over the years, a lack of exercise. As adults, kind of stop moving our body as much. More stress, more toxins, more emotional and stress-based issues as well. We stop getting in as many maybe vitamins and minerals that we need as an adult to buffer all the toxins and stress in our life or to keep up with the lack of sleep. All of these things do matter. So what we need to do, though, is begin to realize that how we live our life affects our overall health. It affects how we age. It absolutely does. Now, there are some things that I will say, yes, they are out of our control. But for the most part, 95+% are within our control. And that's the great thing. And if you're saying, yeah, well, my diabetes is part of the 5%, meaning type 2 diabetes, my high cholesterol, my high blood pressure, my Hashimoto's, my this, my that, my migraines, my allergies, my asthma, my psoriasis. I get it. I understand my Crohn's, my colitis, my IBS. I've heard it all before, and I had it all before. So I get it. I empathize with you. But what I want to say is this. It's not you. Yes, maybe it's in those genetics, but that can be repaired. It really can. It can be rebalanced. But what happens is that we often overlook the minor symptoms in life. Starting to get the brain fog, the grogginess, not having the energy that we should, needing caffeine to give us a little spark, starting to forget names, starting to forget events, those types of things. right? Just not having the same vitality that we once did. Well, what's going on in our body is most likely also occurring in our brain. In the future, we're going to have even better ways of detecting what's going on in the brain and how it's aging. But I'll tell you right now, if you're showing a lot of oxidative stress, if you're showing a lot of inflammation, I'm almost willing to guarantee you that if it's happening in your body, it's happening in your brain. Because your body is not disconnected from your brain. And one of the nice things that we see is the brain is healthier when there's better blood flow. Well, if your body's inflamed, there's less blood flow, most likely. Because as you get inflamed, there is constriction within the body. And it doesn't allow for all the nutrients to flow as they should. Your body, when stressed and inflamed, is also more in that sympathetic nervous system, more of that fight or flight. It's dealing with survival-based mode. What we need to do is get you into revival-based mode. We need to rejuvenate that body. And the way that we're able to do that is, of course, get you less stressed. Now, that doesn't mean just work, emotions, relationships. It actually means stress from digestion, stress from lack of sleep, stress from emotions, stress from toxicity. So what we need to do is get you less stressed on all fronts. And it allows for, of course, then less inflammation. People all the time, natural health and conventional medicine. Everybody wants to treat inflammation. I'm not against it. I'm not saying that it doesn't have a place in both forms of medicine. What I'm saying is, if you're treating inflammation, and if you were to stop to use the NSAIDs, ibuprofen, etc., or you would stop using all the turmeric and bromelain and curcumin and boswellia, which I'm all for, but if you were to stop those and the symptoms were to come right back, you didn't do anything to repair and rebalance the underlying root cause. So while I don't want to see people suffer, we better be working on the underlying root causes if we're also going to use the natural anti-inflammatories. Because I'm for those natural ones, right? I'm pro bromelain, boswellia, curcumin. I'm pro all of those things, ginger. But I'm against using that to treat, like a drug, migraines or joint pain, etc. So what I want to think about is this: underlying root cause, rebalance the body, life is good. The other piece, before I give you these 7 foods and factors right now, is that if you have issues with your body, almost always it's affecting your brain as well. Do not wait until your late 50s, early 60s to begin seeing the first signs of dementia or Alzheimer's or some age-related brain-based disease. Type 3 diabetes is even what we're starting to classify it as, because it has to do with infla-aging. And what it has to do with is this: unchecked imbalances in the body, whether it be toxicities like heavy metals and parabens and VOCs, whatever might be coming into your body. It could be digestive issues, but it is something that's affecting the overall body, and do not believe that your brain is disconnected from your body. So now let's go over. The good news is this: I'm going to give you the 7 things that we know affect the brain. Yes, they affect the body as well, but specifically the brain. But I'm going to give you, because this will never be a doomsday podcast. This is always a truth podcast, unbiased, so you're going to see me offend every group of people, whatever side of the fence they're on for diet. But I'm always going to give you, what do we do then for the pros of how to help the brain, okay? I never want you to believe that your health, your body, your life is out of your control. It's not. I actually don't want you to put it in my hands. I don't want you to put it in another doctor's hands. It's your body. Every day on the Cabral Concept, I want to teach you how to better take advantage of all this knowledge that we have and use it in your life, in your family's life, and those people that you care for and love. So let's go over that right now. And one of the factors is this. And I chatted about it, talked about it a little bit earlier. But as adults, we just become super sedentary. So much more sedentary than we'd believe. And I'm going to give you a little example. And I always like to use myself, because I just want to show you I'm human. If I don't think about these things, I fall into the same exact traps. So let's take my Wednesdays are all day consulting based days. I'm working with my private wellness clients, and I'm going from essentially 7:30 a.m., I get in the office by about 6:45, 7 a.m. at the latest, and I'm prepping for the day. 7:30 a.m., I'm getting everything situated. I'm getting all my files. I have all that. I'm good to go, and I'm seeing people the whole day. And I get a small break for lunch. That's my lunch. That's my walk. Things are good, but I'm seeing people the whole day. So on those days, I will only get about 3,000 steps to 3,500 steps maximum if all I do is a quick walk to work, I do a short lunchtime walk for about 20 minutes, and I do my walk home to my house. If that's all that I do, that's about 3,000 steps to 3,500 steps. That's what most people get per day. Now you might say, well, that's crazy. I get so many more. I don't check it, right? Most phones now come with a pedometer already built in, or you can download a pedometer really, really inexpensively. You can use one of the fancier ones that I've talked about in the past. I've got a really new high-tech one coming out. I talked about the Oura Ring in the past. It's a great one to use, right? I talked about my Motive in the past. That's another one you could use. And I've got a really fancy one that I'm going to be testing out and maybe talking about in a month or so from now, maybe 2 months. But what I want you to know is this. That's the average. That's what I found in my practice, because I've asked people, hey, what's yesterday look like? And they're like, I don't know. Where's the pedometer on my phone? And I just show them. I go in and look at the Apple Health app, about 3,000 steps a day. So you might think that you're much more active than you are. But with sedentary people, you're not getting good blood flow. You're not able to better balance your blood sugar levels, your inflammation as well. Walking, when relaxed, gets you more into that parasympathetic nervous system. So myself, as well as everyone else, has to think about, well, how can I get an hour more of walking in a day? And you might say, I don't have an extra hour of walking to walk. Nobody does, right? Nobody does. But you can probably fit in being a little bit more active during your everyday, which leads then to an hour more walking a day. Now, your workouts count as part of those 10,000 steps. So the more workouts you can get in per week, you'll definitely get your 10,000 steps. The other days you're not working out, you still can't be sedentary. So how do we build it in? Well, we could do a 20-minute walk on the way to work. We could do a 20-minute walk at lunch. We could do a 20-minute walk at the end of the day. That's 1 hour right there. Then, for the rest of the day, you need about 30 more minutes of walking. Just getting up from your desk. Just going to pick up the kids at school. Going to do your errands. Whatever it might be, get another 30 minutes. And track it. Because one of the factors that absolutely can cause age-related issues with the brain is a sedentary lifestyle. There's no doubt about that. We've got really great studies that just show this is a minimal study in the Journal of Neuroscience. And this is back in 2007. And the quote from them was this: walking for 3 hours per week. This is minimal, right? 3 hours per week. What is that? That's only about 25 minutes, 30 minutes or so per day, right? That's your lunchtime walk. Just doing that caused so many new neurons to grow that it actually increased the size of people's brain. So when you want to talk about improving memory, brain plasticity, whenever someone says neuroplasticity or brain plasticity, think about growth in the brain. Think about new neurons or connections between neurons that allow for better thought process, recall of memories, and new cognitive function to be able to figure out new, more complex equations, such as like trying to figure out a word cross puzzle or trying to figure out a new language or play an instrument, okay? All of these things matter, and they're great by simply what? Going for 25, 30 minutes extra of walking per day. You can do that, and it cuts down on one of those 7 factors, which is a sedentary lifestyle. Another one is this: too much caffeine. I talked about it last Friday in the Friday Review about how now it seems that any caffeine during pregnancy is affecting the unborn child. Well, caffeine is considered a stimulant. There's also allergy medication. There's Adderall. There's Ritalin. There's cocaine. There's other types of drugs that are also stimulants. Well, these stimulants create something that causes what's called decrease in neurogenesis. So let me put that in a different way. It reduces the size of the brain. It reduces those neuron-based connections, the synaptic connections between how the brain thinks over the long term. Does it happen the same day? No. Like, let's say you drink a half a pot of coffee, right? And you do that every day because you say, oh, I read this study that people who drink this much caffeine, well, too much caffeine and too much stimulation creates too much cortisol, too much adrenaline. What happens there? Well, it weakens the immune system. What else can happen? It causes intestinal permeability. What else can happen? Well, it can actually start to create inflammation in the body, and it can actually start to break down the brain because that's what high cortisol does. We know high cortisol is correlated with Alzheimer's. Important to reduce your stimulants. Can you have a cup of coffee in the morning? Most likely. Yeah, most likely you can. Most likely you'll get a lot of the antioxidant benefits from it as well. But what happens if that coffee gives you a spike in your heart rate? What if that coffee gives you anxiety or panic attacks? It's not good for you, right? Just because you're getting the antioxidants in it doesn't mean it's good for you. Vata-based disturbances in Ayurveda, they should not take any stimulants at all. Just because there's antioxidants in coffee doesn't mean you need to drink it. You could eat blueberries instead. That'll work. Or another recommendation I give you when we're going to come up as well for what actually improves or increases neurogenesis, which means improving the brain. So let's be careful with stimulants, all right? Let's not go overboard because someone told us this was the new latest and greatest brain-stimulating supplement, okay? We can have some caffeine. That's okay. You start to go above the 200, 300 milligrams a day that's recommended of caffeine. That's essentially the upper limit. Things can get scary. Little caffeine, especially for the kapha body type that's a little overweight, it can actually be beneficial. It could get the body moving because the metabolism can be a little sluggish. Too much spikes blood sugar, spikes cortisol, not good. So remember, the things that I'm chatting about with you today that we're talking about, not necessarily bad, right? It's too little of a sedentary lifestyle, not good. It doesn't mean doing something like hatha yoga is not good. It also doesn't mean that over-exercising is good. That's a stimulant, right? So we want some stimulation. We need that. We don't want to be overstimulated by drugs or too much caffeine. All right. The next one is this: chronic stress, right? We're taking care of our lifestyle factors, a little bit of foods right now. If you are chronically stressed, it keeps you in the fight or flight. That means you're most likely going to get poor sleep. If you get poor sleep, your brain's not going to be able to regenerate. Your brain's not going to be able to repair, and you're going to be full of inflammation. That inflammation leads to inflammaging, and that's basically aging related to inflammation. So what we want to do is this. We want to be able to reduce stressors, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, so I won't go through it, but we want to look at it, reduce stressors in diet, reduce stressors in overexercise, reduce stresses in work and emotion and relationship stress, reduce stressors in toxins, do a functional medicine detox. One of the best things you could ever do for yourself, right? You want to work on your success mindset. You want to work on being more positive. You want to work on reframing stress. And you want to work on using the nutritional supplements like Adrenal Soothe, which contains ashwagandha, phospholyserine, L-theanine, eleuthero, rhodiola, things that will help as adaptogens to stress. Magnesium. I mean, these are things that are clinically proven. You know, it's funny. You'll go on like Wikipedia and it will say, oh, these things are pseudoscience. And I say, pseudoscience? Well, I mean, half of Wikipedia would be pseudoscience. Because if you look up anything with research related to ashwagandha, you can find the research of how it calms the central nervous system. You want to find it on phospholyserine? It's there. What about rhodiola? It's there. What about magnesium? Thousands upon thousands of articles on PubMed that are right there. So again, remember, there are ways to help you calm stress as you're working on your meditation or reframing your mindset towards stress. And the supplements can be really beneficial, and they are natural, right? They really are. They come from herbs, or they come from natural minerals that our body needs. You can test these in your own body. You can do a hair tissue mineral analysis, say, hey, how stressed am I? You can look at your cortisol levels. You can look at your thyroid levels on a test called a thyroid adrenal hormone test, right? On a stress, on a mood-based test. These are all easy things that you can do. I will link up anything that I chat about today at stephencabral.com/1348. That's today's show notes. Okay, the next one is this. Excess alcohol. People will point to every little individual study to show them, oh, no, alcohol can actually be highly beneficial for the gut, for this, for that. All of those have been cherry-picked individually to suit the author's needs. But when you look at things from an unbiased perspective, which is exactly what I do, because I don't care who's right, I have no dog in the race. It does not matter to me. The only thing that matters to me is helping people heal and staying well for life. That's it. There's nothing that clouds that in any way, shape, or form. And I could talk about all these different things that I wanted to do and partnerships and all that. And when I test the products and I use this and I use that, I find that they're not actually beneficial for people. So they never make it to the light of day. People ask me all the time, why don't you use this popular at-home lab test? Why don't you use this popular sauna? Why don't you use this popular thing? It's because I've already tested it and it is actually harmful or not beneficial. That's the only thing that matters to me. Alcohol. Most people, a lot of people enjoy drinking alcohol. I shouldn't say most people, but a lot of people do. And the reason is it relaxes their central nervous system. They're less stressed. They have less of the judgment-based feelings they put on themselves. They have less inhibitions. They're more relaxed. They have a better time when they're around people because they're not always worried about what to say, what not to say. Like, they're not worried about all of that. Well, here's the problem, though. Alcohol, especially on a daily basis, absolutely does create inflammation in the body. Absolutely. And it absolutely does begin to slow one of the pathways with liver detoxification, the cytochrome P450 pathway. Too much caffeine does that as well. A little bit? Okay. What about alcohol? Well, I showed you more research on that. About 3 drinks a week. That's what it is. You have to be careful going above that. You really have to be careful, especially if you know your genetics. And if you're a genotype, your ApoE genotype, you're allele. If you have a 4 allele, especially a 4-4, alcohol, very detrimental. Believe it or not, I know there's a lot of studies saying, well, alcohol actually helps lower bad cholesterol and raise good cholesterol. Interesting, right? Well, here's the thing. If you have a 4 allele, alcohol raises bad cholesterol and lowers good cholesterol. You say, how could that be? Different humans, different genetics. They never tell you about that. Why? Because the ApoE genotype, 3-4, makes up about 20-25% of the population. And the 4-4, which is much more rare, makes up about 2-5% of the population. So when we look at that, that's only about 25% of the people. Guess what? When you take a study of 1,000 people, 750 are the majority that don't have this ApoE genotype 4 allele. So yes, it makes it look like alcohol could be beneficial for cholesterol. But here's the thing. Very much harms 25%, and they don't get any love. They should, right? It should say that, but that's never obviously quoted in a study. Here's the other thing. Too much bad bacteria fills up. It fills up more bacteria in the gut when you drink alcohol. Alcohol is a great prebiotic, right? Great prebiotic. If you have a lot of bad bacteria, if you have SIBO, if you have Candida, it's going to feed that as well. So alcohol, I can't recommend it. Can't recommend it. However, if you choose one night a week and you're out with family or friends or your partner and you want to enjoy yourself and have a drink or two, that's the time to do it. Relax, enjoy, have a good time, calming stress, right? But let's just not take alcohol overboard. Once, maybe twice a week, try to keep it at 3 drinks, okay? That's the best research I have for you right now. It really is. More alcohol is harmful to the body. Does create inflammation, and it does affect liver detoxification. All right, the next one is this. Nicotine. If you smoke, you have to stop. Honestly, there's almost nothing worse for your health than smoking. The truth. You are breathing a cancer-causing carcinogen, smoke, into your lungs. And also, if you're smoking anything, don't breathe smoke into your lungs. So it doesn't matter if it's cannabis. It does not matter if it's nicotine. It doesn't matter if you're vaping or not. Do not breathe smoke or chemicals into your lungs and body. When you breathe them in, they get a free pass to your bloodstream and brain. Here's how. You breathe them in through your mouth, through your nose. They go down. I actually went through this. I don't know if it was on the new detox course we're doing or what, but as you breathe them in, they go directly into your lungs. And through the lungs, the small tubes of the lungs, they mix then with your blood. And it goes right into your bloodstream. Now your body has to try to detoxify it. It could also end up going to your brain. We have to stop breathing in carcinogens into our lungs. That is one of the absolute fastest ways to poor health. Okay? The next one, second to last one, is this: sugar. Processed sugar. Fruit is not processed sugar. Yams, sweet potatoes, purple potatoes, parsnips, beets, carrots, and other starchers are not sugar. Let me repeat that. Fruit is not sugar. Starch is not sugar. Do they break down to sugar? Absolutely. You know what else breaks down to sugar? Every carbohydrate in the world. Every single carbohydrate in the world breaks down to sugar. If you are someone that is dealing with type 2 diabetes or blood sugar dysregulation, should you eat a ton of carbohydrates right now? No. You should absolutely rebalance your body, and the majority of your carbohydrates should be vegetable. However, when we talk about what affects the brain, it's definitely not the fruit, and it's definitely not the carbohydrates, as long as you have normal balanced blood sugar. And here's why. Those plant-based foods, which are predominantly carbohydrates, are brightly colored. One of the things that I'm going to be chatting about, and I won't have time today, so we're going to have to do another show on this, those brightly colored foods are one of the only things that protect the brain. So everyone right now, on a devoid of carbohydrates, you are essentially removing the one thing that is neuroprotective, that actually increases neurogenesis. So processed carbs and processed food, yes. Processed fat, remove it. But here's the thing. What's processed? If it comes in a box, if it comes in a bag, I was just about to call that a bog. If it comes in a box or a bog, you want to pretty much consider it suspect. Now, what if those nuts come in a bag? Well, that's okay, right? Those raw almonds, they have to come in something, right? So that's okay. But if it's a flour, I always say this. If you can take the food that you're eating, like let's just say it's a muffin, right? Or it's a cake or it's a bread, and you can take it between your hands and you can rub it together and it turns to dust, it's most likely a processed food, right? And that's most likely a processed food that's going to spike blood sugar, or obviously straight sugar. Don't take in straight sugar, but also don't take in fake sugar. I did a whole podcast before on artificial sweeteners. You can go back, you can check out that show. They are as dangerous or more dangerous, I would say more dangerous than regular sugar, because they're a chemical. They're a known toxin. At least sugar can play a role in your body. But aspartame? No. Splenda? No. They're not going to. Sucralose? No. So we have to be careful, right? We also don't want, this isn't really about toxins today. I've given you that before, but we have to be really careful of that. All right, the last one, and then I'm going to do another show on things that improve brain function. So I'll do that next time. I thought I'd have enough time today, but of course, sometimes I can be long-winded on these rants. The last one is this, and it's the one that's going to upset the most amount of people, but it's saturated fat. Saturated fat. How can that be? It doesn't make any sense. Well, what we found was this, that I'm going to give you the direct, let me see if I can find the direct study. In those age 65 or older, this is in the Archives of Neurology. This is 2003. I will link this up for you as well. In those age 65 or older, consuming saturated fats and trans fats more than doubled the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And you might say, well, of course trans fats do that. They're oxidized. And I agree with you. But here's the problem as well. So I'm not saying you can't eat any saturated fat. I do. But especially if you're in, again, ApoE genotype 4, okay? But saturated fat, for the most part, can break it down into larger amounts of arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid can increase more of the prostaglandin inflammatory series of cytokines and inflammatory markers in the body that can create aging in the brain, as well as, of course, your overall body. So we have to be careful about total saturated fat intake. Now, we got away from it for a while, and then we're back to keto and carnivore-based diet. Ebbs and flows. Remember, we saw this in the late 70s or early 80s. Then we saw a big resurgence in 2000, and now we're seeing it again about 15 years later. This is the way things work. It's understandable. I'm not saying that all saturated fat is bad. I'm saying when you overdo it, not ideal. There's no longevity diet of people eating a massive saturated fat diet. There's just not. There's not. The longevity-based diets, I'm going to give you another quote. In those, aging 65 or older, consuming fish once a week or more had a 60% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. Now, why would that be? Well, they're getting more omega-3s. Omega-3s contain something called EPA. Yes, they have DHA as well, but EPA counteracts arachidonic acid. So if you're going to eat saturated fat, you better be getting a lot of EPA in your diet. The omega-3 test is still the most overlooked lab in the world. It really is. You need to know your omega-3 numbers, and here's why. It's so easy to rebalance them. And it takes away this, oh, no, my diet's perfectly healthy. My keto... Again, maybe it is. I don't judge anybody. But run the lab. Run the lab. And then we'll know. You can take the guesswork out of it. Don't pretend like your diet is healthy right now. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. There's no need to guess. Really, really important. And here's another thing. For everybody that's super low in vegetables right now and super high in fat, all I ask is that you be careful. That's it. I have no diet plan to sell you. That's not what it is. In those aged 65 or older, the risk of cognitive decline, meaning brain aging, was 38% lower in those eating high versus low amounts of vegetables. Well, if you're really following a keto-based diet and you're getting less than your 7 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, you're not going to take advantage of this 38% lower risk of cognitive decline by eating brightly colored vegetables. If you don't like fruit, that's okay. Eat the brightly colored vegetables at least. But we have to remember, these are part of a healthy diet. So those are the 7 main factors I wanted to bring to you today. They include some foods in there as well. Since I ran out of time today and actually went a little over what I typically do, next week I will be back with 7 additional foods and lifestyle factors that actually improve brain function over time. Because remember, you don't need to get Alzheimer's. I don't care about your genetics. What I care about right now is you living in an environment, putting your brain in an environment that is not susceptible to getting Alzheimer's. Remember, just because you have a certain ApoE genotype that makes you more susceptible doesn't mean that you're going to get it. It's actually a small fraction of people that do actually get it. So what we need to do is this. Let's, yes, know our genetics, but more importantly, let's get our body balanced. I'm going to bring you 7 of those factors next week that will actually help you improve brain function rather than just be on the decline, right? All right, thank you so much for tuning into today's show. Please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stephencabral.com/resources.